At Project 44, we believe in a better supply chain. What if every decision was backed by intelligence, not instinct? Introducing the Decision Intelligence Platform from Project 44, powered by Supply Chain AI. Connect anywhere. See accurately. Act quickly. Automate responsibly. Don't react to your supply chain. Control it. Project 44, the architects of the modern supply chain.
Welcome to a special presentation from FreightWaves and Project 44. For the last decade, supply chain conversations have been dominated by one word: visibility. But what if seeing your supply chain is no longer enough? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on what comes next. I'm here with Jett McCandless, the founder and CEO of Project 44, to talk about what comes after visibility.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I appreciate you flying up from Chattanooga. It's great to have you here. You're right. For years, the industry has been asking, where's my stuff? And visibility has been the answer for that. But folks are asking different questions. And I think about Project 44, visibility was chapter 2. Chapter 1 for Project 44 was us building out our global network carrier, all the logistics nodes everywhere in the world. And hopefully what we get to talk about today is kind of this chapter 3 and chapter 4 that Project 44 have been building out. And that's what our customers have been asking for. They don't just want to see problems, they want to solve the problems. And they really want it instantly.
So chapter 1 was building the integrated network. I remember Project 44's original Twitter handle was FreightWaves, and talking to you back in the day about just the sort of Herculean task of connecting so many disparate actors in the supply chains, building the trust and the network. Chapter 2 was visibility, right? Once we get these systems talking to each other, what can we keep track of? What can we map? What can we monitor? You're calling chapter 3 decision intelligence.
Yes.
Break that down for us. How does this move teams from simply watching a dot on a map to actually making smarter, faster decisions?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Decision intelligence is the difference between knowing if a storm is coming and having a pre-approved, costed out alternative route booked before the first raindrop even falls. It's about using AI to turn billions of data points into trusted, actionable, recommended insights. It's no longer just data. It's the decision engine for people who make and move the world's products. This goes beyond visibility. It's in the smarter, faster decision making that our customers can trust. The world's changing really fast, as you know, and with more disruptions than ever, customers need a platform that helps them anticipate every turn and minimize consequences. We're not just delivering data, we're enabling decisions at the speed and scale that today's leading brands are really demanding.
That's a bold promise. From what you said, you've broken down the journey and Project 44's strategy into 4 distinct steps, which I really like because they're actually really intuitive when you think about them. Connect, see, act, and automate. And that can be to me, when I think about that, I think about the progress of the freight tech industry. I think about even a customer journey and implementing more and more technology. And I know we're going to talk through what each of those steps means. But I know before we want to get to the good stuff first, and I know you want to give us a preview of automate.
Yeah.
So before we hit play on this, why is this level of automation the holy grail of supply chain technology?
Yeah, I think it's the holy grail because it directly moves us towards the vision of an autonomous supply chain. And folks have talked about that for decades. It's where the manual efforts, you take the manual efforts and you're able to repurpose those into executing on these critical supply chain activities. And you can just drastically reduce waste, cost, all the things that are kind of the annoyances in a supply chain. If you can have this holy grail, this autonomous supply chain, you can identify disruptions, you can create tasks, you can empower AI agents to execute whatever the solution is in that particular situation, like rebooking a load or diverting a shipment, all within a preset of rules. It removes all that friction and gives your team back time and margin. So I think when I talk to customers, that's what they're always after. They want time, they want margin, they want profit, they want to lower their inventory, and they want to improve their customer experience. And That's what it delivers on.
So it's not just about seeing the problem like, oh, this shipment is going to be late, and it's not about necessarily even analyzing like retrospective data. Like, for example, if you wanted to like monitor your benchmark carrier's performance, right? This is about acting in real time, automatically solving problems, so they don't become, sort of bigger issues down the line.
That's right.
Let's see it in action.
Yeah, let's do it.
Meet Eric. He's a supply chain manager at a large automotive OEM. And like most mornings, he starts his day the usual way, coffee in hand and movement open on his screen. It's part of his daily ritual. The movement homepage gives him a clear, real-time view of everything that needs his attention, critical shipments, risks, and disruptions across his network. But today, something catches his eye. A severe storm is forming near Texas, and thanks to our AI Disruption Navigator, Eric doesn't miss it. It's highlighted right at the top as breaking news that needs immediate attention. Turns out, 20 truckload shipments could be impacted, and some of them are high-priority orders. These high-priority orders include crankshafts and other original automotive equipment, parts that need to reach the customer on time to avoid production delays. If they don't arrive as promised, the assembly line could come to a halt, and Eric's company could face costly penalties for service-level breaches. Eric clicks through to take a closer look. He notices that one of his Autopilot workflows has already kicked in. He opens it up and sees it in action. While Eric was away, Autopilot has already reached out to the carriers via email and phone and fetched live updates for each shipment. The results are in. A 10 are on time, a 6 are confirmed late, and 4 are pending. Autopilot will try calling again in an hour. For the 6 delayed shipments, Autopilot suggests notifying the warehouse to brace for operational delays, informing customers of potential promise breaches due to weather, and starting the rebooking process for expedited shipping, especially for high-priority orders. Eric reviews the recommendations and clicks to proceed with all of them. While Eric continues sipping his coffee, Autopilot takes over. It identifies the high-priority orders that are at risk, begins rebooking, contacts carriers, shares the shipment details, manages the entire communication, and uses P44's intelligent pricing data to negotiate the best rates. Eric gets a clean summary, reviews the options, and clicks to finalize. But that's not all. Autopilot has been doing more in parallel. Autopilot also called the warehouse, got confirmation they are executing contingency plans. The call transcript is ready for Eric to review. Informed affected customers, emails logged and visible, and scanned social media and news sources to flag that the storm might be gaining momentum. So in just a few minutes, without sending a single email or making a single call, Eric has identified the issue, taken automated actions, and kept his network fully aligned.
That Autopilot demo, that's amazing. I've been writing about Project 44 since 2017, and one of the challenges, as I understood it in the visibility space, just kind of as an observer, was always, how we're providing reams of data, tons of data points to companies that have scanned resources, whether they're technical or operational, and it's like sort of like, how do you operationalize that data? How do you do something with it? How the human sort of decision maker became a major bottleneck for these companies. So it's amazing to see how you sort of taken the next level in visibility, and how Automate really drives very quick reactions and decisions. I want to understand a little bit how we got here, though. You mentioned chapter 1. Take us, if you can remember, all the way back to the beginning. Project 44 was founded in 2014. What was the state of logistics back then?
It was a different world that we were living in. Back then in 2014, it's tough, I think, for some people to think about, but it was the era of phones, and There's still quite a bit of fax machine, email, a lot of EDI. But what we could see is that other industries were being transformed by an API technology, more usable, whether that was travel software or fintech, or we could see that there was just a more advanced software being used there. And so what we started to do is we started to build this one-to-many API network. We started to build this plumbing, or as you mentioned, our old, still might even be our Twitter handle is FreightWaves, to really wire up and connect the entire industry. That was at chapter 1, to build that connective tissue.
So you're trying to build connections that like basically didn't exist. I mean, these were carriers, shippers, intermediaries of various kinds whose systems simply were not talking to each other. Tell me about that.
Yeah, you're right.
Where'd you start?
Yeah, we started in the U.S. in less than truckload, which was a good space. It's somewhat a consolidated network, and if you could get 10, 20 carriers to participate, then you could start to have some type of value proposition. And we were able to prove that out. And in 2015, we launched the first industry's one-to-many LTL API network, and it was a data as a service. It had its own challenges for sure, but it's a pretty big advancement, I think, for the industry to be able to have that. Untangling that mess, showing that they were reliable APIs, educating the market why an API is better than EDI is really how we spent those first couple of years.
So you started with trucking, obviously foundational, the LTL space. So only many small customers, as we know, but only a few dozen carriers. How did you go global and multimodal?
Yeah, that was one of the most important things. So one of the next things after LTL was to go to truckload domestically, and it made a lot of sense back then. Cell phone visibility or tracking, whatever you want to call it, back then was. You could do cell phone triangulation with it, and then the Obama administration mandated that you had to have the EODs in the trucks, and so we took advantage of that tailwind. At the same time, cell phone triangulation became a real problem with the cell phone providers. But and then in 2017 we connected to the rail. So here domestically you have LTL, you have truckload, you have rail, all by 2017. But it was really clear that the Global 2000 shippers were going to be a critical part of the journey. And so we started looking at what was going on in Europe. And back then, I'd only been to Europe one time for holiday, kind of a silly American. But I knew that GDPR was complicated. And in the US, we only had maybe 50 telematics companies by then, and maybe 10 were major players. But in Europe, went over there, it was just crazy. There was over 600 telematics providers.
Jeez.
So it was just really complicated. I remember I saw this company called Gatehouse Logistics, their trade show booth, and the whole trade show booth was just columns and rows of telematics companies. And I thought maybe they were customers because they were European brands. I didn't really know who they were. And I was like, so is that all your customers? And no, that's all the telematics companies. And I was like, oh, well, that's going to be really hard for us to do. Like, we need to figure out how to set that up, who these companies are, and be compliant with GDPR. And so there was a lot of effort that was put into that. But they're a Danish company. We went over and checked them out, and said, let's take a look. I remember I walked around the office and I looked everywhere. There's the engineering team, the CS team, support team. I was like, where's the sales team? And they told me like a very Danish answer. They said, well, we don't have sales reps, because sometimes people tell us no. We just all customer referrals. And I looked at the customer list.
That's not how they do things in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. So I looked at the customer list, and you have like DSV and you have Amazon. And I was like, wow, these are like some of the top brands in the world from an execution standpoint. We should acquire it. So we acquired that. And then in 2019, we looked at, we knew we needed to get in the ocean game. And we started building ocean. But the best way to think about it is if you've ever skied or snowboarded before and you get really proficient at one, like skiing, and then you try to snowboard, you usually give up like half a day because your buddies are all out skiing and you're kind of back on the bunny slope. That's kind of how big of a transition it is going from ground, even if you're ground Europe, ground US, in the ocean. It was just different vernacular, different teams, different contacts, different networks. Everything was different. And we were in a distant third place on our ocean visibility product. So we acquired a number 1 and number 2 ocean visibility company, which was just in time for the COVID and for the Suez Canal. I still own the captain of that
Clear
ship.
Metal and who else?
Ocean Insights.
Ocean Insights.
It's a German company. So this was really cool because the German company Ocean Insights built it like you would think the Germans did. This button did exactly what that button was supposed to do. And then the folks out in San Francisco at Clear Metal, I mean, they were really an AI company is what they really were. They just happened to come into the ocean visibility space.
That's amazing. So now the dot on the map wasn't just a truck moving down I-40, but it's really global in all modes. But as you said, it was still kind of passive. You're watching things happen, monitoring the situation as we say now. But what came after that?
Yeah, you're right. It's a revolutionary product that we had at that point. I mean, to be able to have this connected, multimodal, Western world, I'd say, connectivity had never been done before in an API standpoint. There were a lot of reasons we should have failed along the way. But at the end of the day, like, it is still a relatively passive technology. And to be able to answer the question that people had always wanted to know, which is, where is my shipment, was impactful. But they really wanted to know, so what? Like, what do I do now? Like, and so by bringing this together, all this data, it really started to highlight the biggest question that everybody really wanted to get to. But the first question was, where is my shipment? And now, what can I do about it?
That is the key question. So, I mean, for you, Jett, like, what was the turning point, conceptually, technically? What allowed you to pivot from just kind of, being a data dashboard and sort of showing that passive reality to go from that to adding a layer of intelligence that interprets and acts on it?
Well, it was deliberate. And, maybe after this, I'll go back and I'll show you our Series A and Series B pitch decks. Like, we're right on track on what we expected. Maybe it cost a few more bucks and took a few more years than we were expecting, but it is rolling out as we expected. We always knew we had to move on from collecting data to make it truly useful and insightful. And back in 2021, that's why I think we acquired Clear Metal specifically, so that we could bring these AI data scientists and engineers from Stanford, really some of the best in the world, and certainly they were the best in our industry. But bring them all together. As I mentioned, we had acquired the number 1 ocean visibility company, Ocean Insights, and to buy the number 2 wasn't so much it was really for 2 reasons. One, you had to take the chip off the table for a competitor to buy.
Yep.
And then the second is, though, we have all this data. Like, let's go do something with it. And so that was really impactful. And it wasn't, we just weren't interested in adding dots on a map anymore. It's this intelligent engine, which is why we spent $65 million on Clear Metal. In parallel, while all this is happening, we were spending more on R&D. So not only are we acquiring these companies, it builds this data moat and this IP moat. We were always fine-tuning the architecture of these acquisitions and the whole system and the whole platform. So how can you be compliant with GDPR, with China data regulations, this multimodal and this access management, with this kind of AI-first architecture that plays really nicely with the AI technologies that are going to be developed out there. And I think that's what allows us to provide this intelligent, predictive ETAs, analyze these disruptions, but probably most importantly now is the recommended actions that someone can have a lot of confidence with. And that's really the foundation of the decision intelligence platform.
Now, I love this subtext of this whole story, which is playing out during COVID, when the man on the street suddenly had to think about global supply chains, maybe for the first time in their life, and things were so much less predictable than they'd ever been before. Nothing was acting the way it was. So that was the foundation for decision intelligence. Is that what led to the movement platform?
Yeah, all this coming together is what led to the movement platform. We had something called a visibility operations center. We looked at, was any of the companies we acquired, were any of those platforms strong enough, or robust enough, and had the ability to be this multimodal, multi-geo, multi-geography data requirements. And at the end of the day, none of them were capable of supporting that It's pretty complicated. So in 2022, we launched the Movement platform. And Movement was designed from the ground up. It was designed to be, as you can see here, a workflow where people can come in and really handle the operations of their business, whether they're an LSP or a shipper. And it has a decade's worth of data in it. So you take all the data from all these systems and all these transactions, has a decade of connectivity of building all this together, but in a UX that's designed for these more advanced use cases and much friendlier for folks.
So Jett, in that last section, you walked us through the entire journey that led to the Movement platform. I want to go under the hood a little bit. We talked a little bit before about the framework of connect, see, act, and automate. Let's break that down piece by piece. It all has to start with like gathering the data and ensuring its integrity first, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, being an operator in the industry, for me, I didn't think the world needed another application. The first thing was like, how can you fix the data quality? I think that's one thing that separates us. It did play out kind of as predicted. We are the heavyweight champs in visibility, but the reason that we are isn't because we built the best application. It's because we started out with Connect and fixing all the data quality issues underneath it, where every other visibility company started with an application. I think it's kind of as an afterthought, said like, let's figure out how to wire this together. But remember that chapter 1 was the connectivity. And so that just leads for higher quality connectivity between all of these systems, which then allows our data to be more reliable, which as you know, as you studied AI, like the better the quality of the data, the more advanced use cases you can have with AI and the more value.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea, there's 4.6 million unique shipments a day that go through Project 44. And you're talking about like an insanely high amount. And there's over 1.5 billion API calls that happen. So the amount of data that's flowing, and that's just the carriers. That doesn't include like social media, news, or weather.
So how many calls is that per shipment? That's something like, what, 250,000 per shipment? So, no, yeah, 250,000 per shipment, something like that.
I don't know, I'd have to go back and work the math.
4 million calls and 1 billion, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So a lot of data points coming
Yeah.
in. So a lot of updates, a lot of transactions that are coming through. And I think to be that trusted decision intelligence platform, you've got to have this kind of really high confidence in the data that's there. And you got to make sure that when decisions are being made, that you have the absolute best quality data. And we could see this time and time again when we compare our data to even carriers' data, that we've made an uplift on that data. So you really can make the best decisions with what's there. And I think another big thing is like, how can you make that all real-time data also?
Yeah.
So.
Right, that was the problem with EDI, right? Is that it's like batched and sort of late very often. Yeah. And like, I remember having conversations with people in visibility a long time ago about the challenge of like drayage, for example. Like doing EDI-based visibility with drayage is like impossible because like the load would already be delivered by the time the message went through. So the framework starts with Connect. Technically, I think that's like such an underrated achievement, just given the proliferation and just the sheer number of people who are contributing to the data, who want access to different parts of it, all the different players, all the different software systems that they may be using. Technically, how did you achieve that, and why does it matter?
Yeah, well, it cost us hundreds of millions of dollars just to build this Connect layer here. And it is definitely, without a doubt, the world's largest comprehensive logistics data graph. Like, there's nothing even close to it anywhere. And it's not just, there's over 5,000 carrier APIs. That doesn't include the over 1,000 connections to telematics. It doesn't include cameras. It doesn't include the voice agents that are collecting data. If you just look at the 5,000 plus APIs on the one-to-many platform, there's less than 15 companies in the world that have something like that. And you're talking about like a GCP and AWS, Azure or something like that. But that intelligent data fabric is really, really critical. That not only takes all those connections, but reduces the latency, reduces the errors from the carriers that makes the data more comprehensive and complete. And then also, what's really interesting is that you start to get multiple data points about any particular shipment at one time. You might get a camera that says something different than what the telematics device says. It's different than the IoT. It's different than the carrier's API. It's different when the agent calls. And so that's a pretty extreme example to have 4 or 5 of those data points. But how are you actually blending all that information together so that you can give the customer the most accurate? And you can imagine what kind of happens if it's the agent calling. Sometimes the carrier is exaggerating a little farther than what it's saying.
I'm almost there.
Yeah, but there's all different types of reasons as to why some of this information isn't always as accurate as it may appear on the surface. Cellular systems go out. There's bugs in software, in telematics and camera systems and all types of things like that.
Yeah, I love that. The way that you guys approached the connect layer, involves not just gathering the data and the connections, but like you said, like figuring out latency, figuring out like a hierarchy of like reliability, like making sense of it and structuring it is all sort of very foundational. After that comes the C layer.
Yeah.
What did that deliver that teams didn't have before?
Yeah, I wouldn't say C is a synonym of visibility, but visibility definitely tucks into C. It's where you can really, I guess, start to see the foundation come to life. And that was the biggest problem with Chapter 1, the data as a service, this kind of connectivity, is that especially companies didn't really understand what it was. The LSPs really understood what it was, and I'm really grateful for that. But the shippers, especially back years ago, didn't understand what it was. It's like, how do I interact with it? And you're transforming that raw data into actionable, contextualized, end-to-end intelligence, moving kind of from this passive dot on a map to active foresight. And first, it provides a unified view of every mode, on every mile, just on one single screen. And that's all the way from end-to-end visibility. So all the way from, say, like inland China to anywhere else in the world, or Vietnam, or wherever products are being made. You also start to have products in there like port intel, which we could see the berthing, the anchoring, the dwell time, everything that's happening at all the terminals in the ports. You also have asset visibility, where we could see private fleets and things that are happening. Order visibility, I think, gets to be quite a bit more interesting when you're looking at C. I think oftentimes in this industry, when I hear people be critical of visibility, they're usually being critical of like transportation visibility, and they may say, well, that's a commodity or it's something. It's like, well, it's definitely not a commodity by the definition of a commodity, which is you can't tell a difference between the two.
Not fungible.
Yeah, it's definitely, there is a difference between our transportation visibility and someone else's. But like, let's just put that argument aside. When you get into order visibility, which is where we have a connection into an ERP or some type of demand center, and we can see it a PO, we can see it a sales order, we can see it a batch number, we can see it a SKU, we can see a part number.
That then makes the information relevant not just to the transportation team at the shipper, but tells the rest of the organization, hey, like, that order, these parts that were part of this process and going to this place, or it sort of puts like a shipment delay in context and tells them like what it's going to mean for their operations, because it puts it, like you said, like it shows what actually is in the shipment.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a shipment, like, I grew up in transportation, but a shipment, like, it means something to us when, as LSPs, it means something to us as a carrier, but from a shipper perspective, like, what they really want to know is like, how can they sell their product, and where's the product at, and how can they do it in an efficient way? And a shipment is just really a bit of an inconvenience for them trying to solve that answer. So being able to stitch together, to exactly your point, with the merchandising folks, the treasury department, the finance department, the sales team, the marketing team, the customer service, they're often dealing with like, where's that PO, where's that sales order? So to be able to answer that question is much more valuable than just where's that shipment at. And you've got to have a global multimodal network that includes Asia to answer that question.
So seeing the problem early, like for example, a delayed shipment, or in the example that we saw, some storm in the Atlantic Ocean is a huge advantage, but that's where many organizations get stuck, right? So the screen behind us now shows the act layer of the movement platform, and it's a lot more than just a map. Can you walk us through what we're seeing here and how it helps the team act on an issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So ACT, there's a lot of functionality that's in a TMS that's in the ACT, and there's some TMS functionality that's in C in various parts. But when you're looking at this, I mentioned earlier that in Chapter 2 that we invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the Connect. We've invested over $1 billion at this point in R&D to get to this. So just to Connect and See is over $1 billion of R&D. And that ability to kind of remove the friction and the bias from the supply chain. That also created a huge data moat for us, for the business. The ACT layer is designed to answer that question that everyone really wants to do, which is, so what? Or now what? What do I do with this information? It converts the insights from the C layer into this bias-free, intelligent workflow. And this suite of products and capabilities that you see on the screen, it really helps eliminate the need for phone calls, emails, and costly firefighting. So if we stick with the storm example that was used earlier, the first place a user would go would be over here on the exception management piece. And instead of a vague alert, the platform's already categorized what's at risk, all the shipments. You can actively see exceptions that are late, whether it's 5 days or 1 day, whatever's been defined. If the shipment, if it's been rolled, or if it's been held, if it has demurrage risk, any type of exception that you need to run your operations with. And the system intelligently triages the problem for you, so that your team can focus on what's most critical. And instead of a planner being really panicked, the platform instantly triggers the exception. This is a big advancement forward.
So it's kind of organizing all of this chaos automatically sort of prioritizing things and helping people tackle these problems. Just as an example, what happens when you click on one of those exceptions?
Yeah. So if you click on one of the exceptions, it's where the rest of these products really start to come into play. A critical exception might take you to the intelligent TMS module here. And here, an instance of instead of guessing, the platform can present pre-vetted carrier options for you to reroute what's happening here. It can rank them by on-time performance, by their actual digital score, take into account emissions, also costs. So you're able to look at a lot more than just cost. Transportation companies have been complaining about this for years, that TMS has kind of made them a commodity. Well, on our platform, it's kind of the opposite's happening here, because all that work, all that effort of being on time, making sure you have a good digital score, making those heavy investments, now that all starts to be displayed. So you start to separate the quality of whether it's the asset carrier or an LSP to really make that optimal choice. But I think the other important thing here, it's not just about being used for disruptions. This ACT layer, it really helps you make better planning across your entire operations. You can analyze carrier performance in a procurement analytics product, so you can improve your sourcing strategy. You can manage facility bottlenecks much better with our yard management. So whether that's at the guard shack or the appointment scheduling, or actually just optimizing the yard, all those products are here in ACT. And it provides the data needed that you need at the tip of your fingers to really make the smartest decisions.
Jett, we've covered the foundational layers now, Connect, See, and Act. And now we arrive at what feels like the future, Automate. How does Automate take the Act layer to its ultimate conclusion, especially given Project44’s vision for an autonomous supply chain?
Yeah, JP, if Act is the intelligence that guides the action for Automate, it's this intelligent, autonomous action is how I think about it. This is where AI agents can execute critical supply chain activities. They can do the bookings, the routings. You can collaborate with your co-pilot called Mo that we have. And the agents itself can interact with Mo or the user. All within, I think this is an important part, all within the defined parameters that you are setting up as the supply chain expert. It's really automated is the accumulation also of everything that we've built. This delivering the self-optimized logistics that people have been talking about years, that's finally possible here. On the left-hand side, you can see this autonomous TMS. This isn't just AI making suggestions. It's actually AI agents initiating and managing the TMS functionality. Imagine AI automatically rebooking a shipment or find an optimal carrier when a disruption in a storm happens. Rather than emailing on a distro list, you could look at the entire network here and you can find who's the best 3PL or LSP or asset-based carrier without a human being involved with that. So you could free people up. The system learns, it redefines, and aligns with what your operation is as an LSP or a shipper in real time. On the right-hand side here, you can see the autonomous workflow. And this extends beyond the TMS to any supply chain. The manual effort required to execute critical supply chain activities is significantly reduced. Repetitive tasks like status updates, notifications, minor exception resolution can all be handled by these AI agents adapting to the real world. The result is adaptive, automated actions at scale.
So you're automating complex decision trees. You've got adaptive responses. In theory, this dramatically reduces overhead and just all of the people that are constantly having to their job is just put out fires all day and answer the phone or frantically email people. And then we're leading into sort of smart, kind of context-aware decision making, within parameters, but given unpredictable externalities too, right? So what does this mean for future roles in supply chain management?
Yeah, in my opinion, it empowers humans. It doesn't replace them. It strengthens the strategic collaboration that shippers have with their LSPs, and it really helps heighten the business value prop that they bring to the table. The automate handles the prediction and time-sensitive tasks. It frees up the professionals to be strategists and real innovators. I meet so many people that are in supply chain that are really talented folks, but they're just so bogged down with kind of sometimes, unfortunately, even still the connect part. They're still, trying to manage the EDI batching that was said. So as each one of these layers gets implemented, it allows these folks to be much more strategic and really have more innovation. I think they need that type of help too when you're talking about all the current events that are happening out there, whether it's, maybe a big one that people want to talk about, like a tariff or something, but you're talking about inflation, you're talking about sourcing changes around the world, consumption. You have these emerging markets that large businesses and small businesses want to sell to. So being able to be more innovative about the supply chain is really where it's at.
So to recap, Project 44 first brought APIs at scale into the logistics industry and then visualized it, with the proverbial, dot on a map and moved that into a fully orchestrated, automated, and I think also democratized platform and movement. I think that's what ultimately this kind of artificially intelligent technology does, is that it allows smaller enterprises to take advantage of the data that you've built, right? What's one thing you want people to remember from today's presentation?
Probably that Project 44 is no longer this kind of passive act of watching. It's active, it's intelligent, it's this automated engine for this competitive advantage that's out there. The question is no longer where is my stuff, but what's the best decision I can make right now, and how can I automate it?
Jett, thanks so much for this conversation. It's been just incredibly insightful. Where can people go to learn more?
I'd welcome everyone to go to our website, project44.com, or scan the QR code behind us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.